Welcome to the Writer Reads Chronicles of a Dark God, Book 2, Dark Gods Rise, Chapter 22, Into the Mistlands. Jrul Arkanazra of the Silver Mountains Eagle tribe flung the door to the portal room open. Anthra, his second in command, moved swiftly by him, sword drawn. She flipped first one bed, then the other, sending them clattering onto their sides and making it look easy. No one, she said, stating the obvious, and Jrul nodded. He'd already moved into the room, gliding toward the fireplace. Magic skittered ahead of and around him, raising the hairs on the back of Anthra's neck and sending static over Brianda's skin. One of her stolen daggers dug uncomfortably into her leg, and she braced carefully as she shifted it to a less sensitive position, flinching as the beds hit the floor. Footsteps approached the fireplace, and she knew her discovery was imminent. The static pressure of impending magic strengthened, and she knew the raiders' leader was about to cast another spell. She only hoped it would have as little effect on her as the others he'd used. Wedging herself more firmly between the rough stone walls, she pushed against them to strengthen her position, and yelped in surprise as the stone gave way. Feeling her back begin to slip, she pushed harder against the stone and felt herself pushed through it. Frantically, she kicked out at the chimney's walls, but there was no resistance, and she fell. Flailing her arms and twisting, she caught sight of the raid leader's silver hair as he stepped back from the fireplace. She comes, drifted up to meet her, as did the more distant sound of running footsteps. What is it? Someone slammed into the door and grunted. They've broken through, sir. We've no more time. More footsteps followed, and Brianda heard more people racing into the room. She hit the bottom of the chimney amidst a shower of soot and puff of ash, listening to the bandit leader giving orders. Go through, he ordered. I'll follow. Brianda rolled into a crouch, shaking debris from her face. Again the raid leader's voice reached her. Anthra, lead them, he snapped. At once, the female leader answered, and Brianda glanced up in time to see her step through the glimmering curtain. Those too afraid to follow a woman's example should feel free to stay behind, the leader taunted. But I won't be waiting for you. We're not afraid to go where a woman goes, came back a sullen reply. Anthra's not like most women, another man commented. She'd be likely to go someplace we wouldn't want to go anyway. A nervous ripple of laughter followed, but ended shortly after when one of those closest to the door moaned softly and slid down the end wall, an arrow embedded in his chest. Ain't nothing's wrong where Anthra's gone, one of the other men declared, stepping hurriedly into the gate. The others weren't slow in following as more arrows flew down the corridor, forcing those closest to the door to raise their shields to block them. Jrul hurried his steps as silver fell about him. The first ring of steel against steel as their pursuers reached the last of his men was swallowed by the roaring fuzz of nothing. He took a few steps more and the fuzz and surrounding whiteness parted, revealing a grass-covered hillside. Turning quickly to survey those who'd already arrived, Jrul estimated he had almost half his force. With those he'd already counted dead and the few he'd left in the room behind him, he guessed it was the best he could expect. And if he waited any longer, he'd be fighting here, in the place that served as their sanctuary. Closing the portal was the only way to ensure their escape. With a swift half-turn, he brought himself around to face the portal. As he did, another man came staggering backward out of the mist, his sword still flashing at an enemy no one could see. It was enough. The bandit leader waited no longer. With a harsh command, he closed the gate, steeling himself for the echoing screams of those he condemned to the white haze of nothing between the gates. More than one horrified cry reached his ears as the gate faded, and an arm lunged into the air beside the hillside. One of the other men grabbed and pulled the arms owner free of the shrinking portal. The new arrival was one of Jrul's scouts. His near entrapment in the haze between the gates had left him pale beneath his tan, and Jrul wondered what good he'd be when the first mists of winter rolled across the land. When the last traces of the gate had vanished and the land beyond it was revealed, he looked at his men. We camp here tonight, he said. Anthra, we need more wood. Sula, tabak. We need to know what lies in this area. He glanced at the sky. I judge we have less than 2 turns of the hourglass before full dark is upon us." His men didn't reply, but went silently to do his bidding, their expressions stony with distrust. Geroux's lip curled. He didn't care if his men disliked him, only that they did as he bid, and did not challenge his leading. In the room he'd left, another fall of soot made Brianda duck her head, and she shook it from her hair and eyes as the portal faded and closed. The debris fall was noted by one of the newly arrived swordsmen as he drove a raider through the fading gate, and it was all that stopped him from following after his opponent and being trapped in the nothingness that lay beyond, when the portal snapped shut. Brianda heard the swordsman shout in time to glance toward him. She saw the last glimmer of silver fade to nothing, silhouetting him as he pivoted in her direction. She scrambled from the fireplace and saw him dart toward her, blade raised. Turning her undignified scramble into a roll, she cleared the hearth and came to her feet. The swordsman held his blade lightly as he closed, and Brianda knew it could be brought to parry as quickly as it could be brought to thrust. Remembering a pair of such blades in her not too distant past, she reversed, trying to step beyond the blade's reach. At the same time, instinct drove her hands to the dagger-like instruments at her belt. The swordsman saw the move and attacked like lightning. As he did, Brianda's heel caught on the edge of the hearth and she lost her balance, falling hard and striking her head on the brickwork. Pain lanced through her skull as shouting erupted behind her. A woman's voice, she thought, as a blade came to rest against her throat. "Don't move." Brianda sighed. If he'd been a raider, she might have fought. But he'd fought the raiders, and she was willing to bet her life the hunters and foresters of the Criacole weren't into wholesale slaughter. Nausea washed through her, along with the pain and fatigue she'd pushed to one side, and she tried to force it down. It rose like a tide, and try as she might, she couldn't defeat it. The last thing she saw as her eyes closed was the tall, dark-haired figure of a woman coming toward her. The last thing she heard was Raumar's voice shouting from beyond the door, shouting her name as he fought to reach her.